What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for PackersNews.com, live on Facebook late in the day on Monday, shortly after Mike McCarthy has addressed the media and given us an update on starting quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who, it would appear, is yet at least one more day away from being declared ready to go. McCarthy saying and launching his press conference, basically starting it with an update on Rodgers, saying that he has been scanned as of this morning. Team Doctor Pat McKenzie looking things over, other medical professionals being consulted with. Basically, McCarthy saying that he won't have anything for us today. Obviously, conveniently, there is no media availability tomorrow, so there will be no official word from the Packers on Aaron Rodgers until Wednesday at the earliest. Now, we will endeavor, as we often do, to try and find out the moment it happens, which most likely will be sometime tomorrow. But in the meantime, McCarthy stating that they will make the decision that is best in the interest of Aaron Rodgers' health, long-term health-wise. And I think it's pretty apparent, a little bit of gamesmanship here with the Carolina Panthers, who will undoubtedly need to prepare for both quarterbacks. Now, I think most people believe Aaron Rodgers will play in this game, and that's probably how the Panthers will approach it. And if for whatever reason something does occur and Rodgers is unable to play, undoubtedly both teams will switch gears. But as of right now, I think more likely than not, the Packers are engaging in just a bit of gamesmanship here. Now, obviously, McCarthy, everyone involved with the Packers has repeatedly said this will be a medical decision, including Aaron Rodgers has said this will be a medical decision. And so we have to take them at their word. Obviously, the scan was done this morning. They do need to look it over. And we won't have official word until Wednesday. But in the meantime, it feels like it's a good bet that Rodgers will indeed play on Sunday. But until there's official word, there will be doubt. Timothy starts us off with, we still can't get off the field on third down. Aaron Rodgers, we need to talk about that. Yeah, it was a pretty pathetic showing for a good part of the game yesterday against the Browns. A big part of that was, it's become an old refrain this season, it's a lack of pass rush. That Browns front, that offensive line that they paid a lot of money for, they're definitely getting their money's worth because the Packers could not make anything happen. Didn't matter what kind of blitz combinations Capers used, they were unable to get to the quarterback for the most part. Obviously, Clay Matthews made the huge play in overtime to cause the interception, but for the most part, the Packers were kept at bay. Now, the blitzing that Capers is able to do is limited somewhat because of the fact that they are running so many substitutes in the secondary. There were a number of occasions yesterday where guys just simply didn't know where to line up. So down in and down out. So I think he's hamstrung a little bit there, but more than anything, it is a lack of pass rush that is killing the Packers on third down. Love Randall and Gordon's back and forth. Yeah, Braden, I wrote about it this morning. You can check it out at PackersNews.com if you haven't seen it. Funnily enough, it was sparked by our Tom Silverstein's story. And Josh Gordon had it apparently tweeted into his timeline because he retweeted it, which included a quote from Randall saying he had one catch. Any other questions? Gordon didn't take kindly to that, and Randall responded in kind. So make sure you check that out at PackersNews.com. Always good to get a little trash talk going after a game. I'm pretty surprised they are seriously going to bring him back this quick. Oh, if you're talking about Aaron Rodgers, I don't know. I would tend to agree as far as when he broke it, I thought, there's no way. But after watching him throw, obviously I think the mechanics are there. He looks like he's able to play a game tomorrow. Now the question is how healed the bone is, and that is obviously what they're looking at with the scan, seeing what kind of healing has been done over the last X amount of weeks, and the big question is, can he take a hit? There's going to come a point where, some point, whether it's this week or next week or whenever it is he's on the field, he's going to take a hit. He's going to get tackled. He's going to, have to test it out. And that will be the big hold your breath moment if and when he is out there. Football this year is a joke, says Judy. Not sure what you mean there, Judy. What top defensive free agents should they target this offseason? Mike, it's a little early for that. Let's talk about that after the season, shall we? The playmaker abilities Adams has grown into is quite impressive. Yeah, Adams has really become a clutch player. There's no doubt about it. And, I think, obviously some of that is Hundley preferring Adams. He does look for him first before anybody else on the field. There were a couple plays yesterday, most notably actually on the touchdown that tied it up at the end of regulation. Nelson is open on the other side. He runs a little arrow route, and he's open. Hundley just looks the other way, which is fine, It still works, obviously. It's still a touchdown, but it's really clear that that's where Hundley is most comfortable throwing the football. For sure, we have to re-sign Adams. Obviously they're going to want to re-sign him. Obviously they've got a lot of work to do with their salary cap because they can't go into next season paying 3 wide receivers over $10 million, which is what they would have to do if they were to re-sign Adams and then not touch the cap numbers for Cobb and Nelson. Now, with that said, I tend to think something will get done probably at the last hour, and it's going to take all of Russ Ball's magic powers to most likely get some kind of extension out of Cobb where that reduces his cap hit and where they spread the money around a little bit. But that's, it's no guarantee that Adams is going to want to come back. He may want to hit the market, especially now that you remember when Hundley first started, the kind of buzz around the team and nationally especially you saw quite a bit was, this is going to ruin Adams' value on the open market. Maybe the Packers can get offer him a low ball deal now, and maybe he'll take it. On the contrary, Adams has balled out with Hundley under center, and his numbers have stayed pretty consistent. And now he's 3 games away, maybe a couple more playoff games, maybe a run to the Super Bowl, who knows? But he's pretty close to, getting to kind of that sweet spot where his rookie deal is going to be up, and he can hit the market and really hit it big. The salary cap keeps going up every single offseason. Wide receivers, especially talented ones, they're getting paid between Hopkins, Jeffrey, etc. I don't know if he gets Hopkins money, but he definitely could get Jeffrey money. He's going to get paid. So we'll see where Adams stands and how determined he is to reach the market. Extension for Cobb, but Ty is the same player. You can't have too many good players. Why people are so quick to kind of want to usher Cobb out the door is beyond me. Adams has 9 TDs this year, top 5 NFL. He will want to be paid. I agree. Jordy coming back next year. Todd, I would think so. He said he wants to play. He wants to play out his deal, and then kind of look at retirement as a possibility. I would tend to think that would probably be the case. And I tend to think he'll kind of come alive again, so to speak, once Rodgers is under center. I don't think there's any question the two of them have excellent chemistry. You saw it early on this year. And just with Hundley under center and the limitations that the offense has had with him at quarterback, it's, there hasn't been any production there for Jordy. But I tend to think we'll see him come alive once Rodgers is back under center. They need to upgrade defense before they waste more money on offense. Aha, but you're always getting better at all positions and at all phases of the game. It's not a question of we have to look at this and prioritize it over everything else. You're getting better, you're getting worse everywhere all the time. You can't think of it like I was going to say a grocery list, but I don't really prioritize when I go grocery shopping. Maybe I'm weird. But you can do both. You can't just sit there and say we have to improve our defense and let our offense rot. You've got to improve on both sides of the ball every single day, really. What's up with Adams, the defensive tackle? Gary, that is an excellent question. Been inactive a lot. He was actually active this week, but when he's on the field, there is very little to kind of write about, talk about. He is pretty nondescript. The time that he missed, obviously he hurt that foot right at the start of camp, right when they got to put the pads on, and he missed a whole boatload of time. And, he just hasn't flashed at all when he's been given a chance. So I tend to think they're going to this is basically a redshirt year for him. They'll let him get through the offseason program. They'll bring him back next year and hope that off-season in the weight room, extra time, and, to kind of hit the ground running, so to speak, and maybe he comes on and turns it on next year, because this year is definitely a wash. Eric, the House injury, it does sound like McCarthy said he will be challenged to play this week. It is a type of back injury. We've seen it around the league a number of times. Actually, a few quarterbacks, whether it's Derek Carr or Tony Romo, guys have played as soon as a week after suffering it. Now, it doesn't sound like House is going to be a week, but it does sound like House will most likely play again now this season. Now, like I said, I don't think it's going to be this week, but he's got a good shot playing the Vikings game Christmas weekend. Will we sign a free agent corner now? Now? Week 15? No. They'll go with what they got. Has Jordy fallen off his game, or is it a chemistry issue? Chad, I think it's a bit of both, actually. The suddenness is definitely not there, and everything they run is they're not running lots of deep developing routes, and they're not doing a lot of adjusting at the line of scrimmage or in the red zone, which is really where he made his hay with Rodgers. But it definitely looks like he is a little off, and his suddenness isn't there. Now, I am interested to see if that suddenly comes back when Rodgers is under center. And, it's an intangible thing. It's not something I can point to and say, that's it. But he does seem a tad slower and a tad, plays that you've seen him make time and time again seem to be eluding him this time, this stretch. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Rodgers. Is Aaron Jones in the doghouse? I don't think so. I know he had a slip up in pass protection yesterday. But, McCarthy also called a big-time fourth down call for him to get the ball, which probably would have been ended up in the end zone had Hundley not screwed it up. I don't think he's in the doghouse, per se. I just think Jamal Williams has been so good in pretty much every aspect of the game that the Packers want to ride him. Raji to replace House. Now you're talking, Steven. Which route does Aaron Rodgers excel at throwing? His favorite? Back in the day when he first was starting, and there was all these comparisons going on between him and Favre, McCarthy had stated publicly that the slant was Favre's best route, and the deep comeback was Rodgers' best route as far as his throwing it. Aaron's been asked several times about, what's his favorite, etc., and he's never really pinned it down. And it's funny because that deep comeback, they used to run that all the time, like 15-yard comeback up the sideline. They used to run that all the time to Jennings. And they used to run it quite a little bit to Jordy too. But they've really gone away from that. Even when, not just with Hundley, but even with Rodgers under center. It's not something they've run a ton with Jordy lately or with Adams. But that back in the day, that was his best throw. And it was definitely... it's a tough throw to make, and not a lot of guys in the NFL can do it on a consistent basis. Lots of guys have the arm strength and can do it, but Rodgers just makes it look so easy. But as far as what's his favorite, I don't know. We'll have to get it out of him. Maybe I'll ask him next week. Thoughts on Biegel? I think it's telling that he can't displace Kyler Fackrell. As nondescript and as non-productive as Kyler Fackrell has been when given opportunities, Vince Biegel can't even get ahead of him as far as getting on the field, getting the call when somebody gets injured, like Nick Perry was out, etc. He's been given chances, but he's not really flashing very much. Now, he's playing special teams, and he's doing a pretty good job there. But again, I think that's the case. When you look at Biegel, missed a lot of time. He missed the entire offseason, missed everything in pads in camp. And then he was obviously on PUP for the first 6 weeks of the season. So he's missed a ton of time, a ton of field work. And again, I think it's a bit of a redshirt year for him. And we'll see what he has next year. Do you see Callahan as the key developmental project for next season? Not really. I got, put it out there. I love Callahan's game. I know a lot of people think he's quote unquote not terrible, not very good, whatever. I've heard all sorts of descriptions. I think he's a total gamer, and while his game may not be pretty, he's going to make the most out of chaos, and I really like watching him play. Now, that said, that's not something you can bank on. That's not something, if you're a coach or you're a general manager, you're saying, yes, this is the guy I want to groom for the future. I tend to think they'll look at the draft again and probably draft another quarterback. But, McCarthy has said it numerous times how much he likes Callahan. And obviously he was a bit upset last year when they cut him, and then the Saints picked him up. They liked him so much they brought him back after he went to, New Orleans and then Cleveland and then back to Green Bay. So they clearly like something about him, but his limitations are pretty apparent. Do you think Hundley will stick around, or will he go elsewhere because Rodgers has so many years left? Well, he's under contract for one more year. And like I said, I do think they'll probably look at quarterbacks in the draft, and if they like one, they'll take one. But I do think Hundley will be the backup next year. He'll be on the last year of his rookie deal, making a couple $100,000, cheap, really cheap insurance should Rodgers go down again. And at this point now, you've played him for, 6-7 games. So absolutely, now you can win games with him. You went through all those growing pains. You might as well stick with him for one more year, now that you know exactly what you've got there. Do you think they will go higher in the draft for a quarterback? If the value's there, Phil, they do have a lot of picks. That is the thing. They should be getting 2 or 3 more, too, as far as for the compensatory picks, which can be traded now, so you could package some of those, maybe move up and grab a guy you like. But that's only if they really love a guy and he starts to fall. If there's a prospect they think is really, really good and he falls to this late into the second day, maybe. But that's a big maybe, because they got a lot of needs. Oh, that's very nice of you to say. What is the way to attack Carolina? Really good question. I mean, you saw the struggles that Minnesota had yesterday, and Minnesota's been playing really, really good football, and they struggled mightily down in Carolina. I tend to think Cam's going to be a big, big, big problem for the Packers when they're on defense. For obvious reasons, guy's mobile, he's got a rocket arm, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. On offense, I think they got to lean on that running game, and it's funny because the defensive front for the Panthers has been playing much better in the last 2 or 3 games than they had been earlier in the season. And obviously that front includes one Julius Peppers. I think the Packers have got to lean on the running game, especially in Aaron Rodgers' first game back. Now, should they stack the box on Aaron Rodgers, then I think, you let your 2-time MVP quarterback loose. But I think you come out of the gate trying to establish Jamal Williams, because that is going to be Aaron Rodgers' best friend as he kind of acclimates back to playing after a couple months off. It's odd how well Hundley has played away from home. Yeah, it is weird, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it sure seems like the pressure's kind of off. He's not really pressing very much when he's on the road. And he's been lights out in the fourth quarter on the road. It's kind of ridiculous. Will Cam go full Fez hat on some? That's a good question. Wait and see. Will there be a realistic possibility that Cobb and Nelson restructure their contracts so that Green Bay can lock Adams? Hard to say that they'd approach it like that. It's hard to say that they would go to them saying, look, we need this money to go sign Adams. I think they would probably go to them individually and say, we would like to rework your deal. The inference is probably there that, they're trying to extend guys, not just Adams, but Corey Linsley as well. But yeah, I think there's a realistic possibility that one of those happens. Both of them restructuring, that seems like a long shot, but you never know. Screen pass is killing us. Yes, it is, Elliot. It has been since the Saints came to Lambeau months ago. And I asked both McCarthy and Capers about it, and they kind of, gave non-answers. And it really comes down to 2 things. One, the Packers use so much specialization, and they do so much as far as in their fire zone scheme that teams know they can take advantage of, especially with how Sean Payton attacked them in that game, Hundley's first start. What teams have done a really good job of is using that kind of specialization and multiple personnel looks from the Packers. They've kind of worked to confuse the Packers on defense, and you've seen time and time and time again where teams have taken a back and started him in the backfield, giving the defense one look. And so the defense sets itself, and they all have their responsibilities, but then they split that back out wide. And all of a sudden, Green Bay is thrown into total chaos because they have so many different guys playing so many different spots and have so many different responsibilities. They're trying to like work the traffic, whatever. And then finally they get lined up and they throw that screen out to that running back, and it's the same slip screen nearly every time. And guys just don't fight through that initial block. And they don't have a guy in the middle. As well as Martinez has played this year, it's either him or Joe Thomas usually in these situations, and neither one of them is athletic enough to get over there and just blow it up, which is essentially what happens with the Packers trying to run that stuff. So, and then, like I said, the teams know that they can run it because they've seen it done week in and week out on tape, and until the Packers show that they can stop it with regularity, which, by the way, they've done a much better job against the traditional screen, where, the back is in the backfield and then, the offensive line invites the rush up and then the back tries to leak out after the rush is gone. They've done a much better job of defending that. But that slip screen where they start with it's basically a wide receiver screen, but they use the running back, that has killed the Packers for months. Thomas is undersized. Yes, he is, Derek. We need O-line depth for the next 2 to 3 years. I would agree, Trevor. Although, hey, they found something in McCray. You can't deny that. I mean, that's a big-time upgrade from Barclay as far as your first guy off the bench. He can pretty much play every position, and play him pretty well. Outside of center, which, he was really kind of up and down in the little bit of the time we saw him in the summer. But, he didn't look good at any of the positions this summer, but you put him in there during the season, and he's played pretty darn well. Hopefully Cam has one of his bad games he is known for. It's possible, Bryson. Who knows? Rodgers coming back to a running game. I believe in magic. Tony? Yes, well, you should. Let's see. Medical staff should take the blame for so many injuries last few years? No, absolutely not. 1,000,000,000% no. The Packers are more injured than the average NFL team this year, but throughout the years, they are absolutely not. Last year, where everyone thought they were, quote-unquote, so injured, they were actually right in the middle of the pack. Every NFL team is injured. Every single one, especially this time of year. It's not the medical team. It's football. You're watching a violent game, people get hurt every single week. Kendricks gone after this season? Not necessarily, Marshall. I know he's going to obviously probably face some kind of suspension from his arrest, but I don't think that'll happen until next year. Probably week 1, like Geronimo Allison. But yeah, no, I don't think necessarily. I still think he can help this offense. He just hasn't been featured a whole lot. The tight end in particular hasn't been featured a whole lot with Hundley under center. Do you think it will be the clash of the gum chewers this week? It absolutely won't, because Brett Hundley is probably not going to play. I thought injuries were bad last year. Yeah, Brandon. If you actually look around the NFL and look at data, look at Football Outsiders. They keep track of games lost due to injury, and the Packers were right in the middle of the pack last year. Let Rodgers stay out until next season, finish out as is. He shouldn't come back to try and save the season. He should come back and play. He's a football player. Football player, but we pay millions of dollars. Don't do the thing we pay you millions of dollars to do. I don't get it. Thoughts on Demarius Walter? I thought he was lights out again yesterday. When asked to play man coverage, he played it extremely well. Now, obviously, he got safety help throughout the game. This makes sense. But I thought he played a great game, and I thought last week against Tampa was his best game as a pro. Between what he did both against Jackson and against Brate, he's played very, very well the last few weeks, and you've seen the continuous growth since his benching on that Thursday night against Chicago. Can't say enough about the job he's done, just putting that, using that as kind of fuel and just really improving as the year's gone on. I mean, he's really turning into a really fine player. Who's the second corner versus the Panthers? Excellent question, DJ. My hunch is probably Hawkins, but we'll see which way they go. Bring Kuhn back to save this season. Yeah, right. Let's call Sam Shields. What else are we going to do at corner? Probably Hawkins, the poor man Sam Shields. Is HaHa playing better? I think he's... Man, That's a tough question. I think he's playing a little better. I do still see some hesitancy, some late arrivals as far as taking bad angles or turning down tackles, etc. But I also think he's being asked to do a lot. And I think there's a lot going on back there with guys in and out, guys not knowing what to do. He's trying to make up for a lot of that. He's trying to kind of shepherd people in the secondary there a little bit. So I think that's kind of, draining, maybe taking away from his ability to kind of just be a ball hawk as a center fielder. But, that was a great play he made, the interception right before the half. Definitely kind of basically takes points off the board there. And it's a great play just to track it and to keep his feet in bounds. I mean, even though, obviously the quarterback leads him there with his eyes. I mean, he's kind of focused on that guy the whole way. But we've seen that happen a number of times where he doesn't make the play. And that he absolutely made that play at the end of the first half. And keeping his feet in bounds, great job, almost like a wide receiver. That's what you need from him. And the more they get that type of play from how the better off they'll be. 50, where's the helmet over now, or 42? Martinez is now, I know they said they were going to give it to Burnett when Burnett got back, but I've seen a number of occasions where Martinez, especially yesterday, where Martinez is looking at the sideline and giving him one of these, like, I need the call. So I'm pretty sure Martinez is the guy right now. Glad to see we just made Raji the richest paid quarterback ever. Nice. There we go. The Raji comment gets me off the hook. It's time to go, people. Thanks so much. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to your question. They do fly by awfully quick. I'll be back on Wednesday. More likely than not, we'll have a news on Aaron Rodgers prior to that. But if something breaks tomorrow, I'll definitely hop on and talk to you guys. In the meantime, make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest. We'll have everything off of the Browns game, whatever happens with Aaron Rodgers, and obviously leading up to the Panther game on Sunday. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.